All right. Mic check. Are we good? We good? Greg? Cool. Silly Greg. Anyway, so let's get right to the video. We're going to talk about what I read in the month of June. And then next up, you'll see what I'm reading in the month of July. Why am I mentioning both? Who knows? So in the month of June, I bit off a little bit more than I can chew simply because if you're anything like me, you make a lot of lofty goals of what you're going to read in the month and then do other things like play Baldur's Gate for lots and lots and lots of hours, which I did finish, and it was great. But wow, that was a lot of hours. No, not all in one week. Calm down. So I didn't get to quite as much reading as I wanted to. I'm still actually in about the 65-ish% area of one book, and one I just straight up didn't get to. But let's talk about the books that I did get to, which, first of all, Discworld, books 1 and 2, Color of Magic, and The Light Fantastic. So, again, I had started out my Discworld journey with Mort and Guards, which were both fantastic. Knocked it out of the park for me. I absolutely loved them, and I decided against just continuing with those series for whatever reason. I wanted to try publication order, so I went back and read both of these. The good thing about all these Discworld books is even the weaker ones, like I would consider these weaker than obviously where I started. They're still rather interesting. They give you a lot of world building, just like introduction to sort of the zaniness and crazy world that Pratchett created. It's phenomenal to see how his mind worked. There's so many spins on traditional like themes and narratives that he puts in these books that are really interesting. Even just his take on magic and Rincewind being sort of a failed or very flawed mage and not really being able to cast spells. When he meets Two Flower, he's totally unimpressed by his magical feats that he can bestow upon the world. And just a typical mage in fantasy would be, really, really powerful, just slinging spells back and forth, left, right, and center. And Rincewind just kind of fails at that a lot. He wasn't very good at it. It takes him years and years and years to even memorize a single spell, and then you kind of use it and it's gone. The reason that these were kind of lesser than Mort or Guards to me is, well, one, Color of Magic is basically 4 short stories where you have just sort of like a collection of little mini adventures that they're going on. And the book's not that long, so none of them are incredibly fleshed out or, to me personally, that interesting or funny or witty as much as something like a Mort or a Guards. I just think that as the series progresses, obviously it's going to get stronger, and damn, he wrote 43 of them, so I'm really excited to just continue. I do think I want to keep going in publication order for now, just to get a feel for the beginnings of all these different branches of reading orders that you could follow. I don't know that I'll stick to publication order entirely, but rather than just read all of, the death books, I wanted to kind of get a feel for each of these things and then probably choose from there once I've read like the first of each of them. But I am looking forward to getting back to those two because they were fantastic. And The Light Fantastic, speaking of fantastic, is basically a direct continuation of The Color of Magic, a continuation of these two characters and their journey of Rincewind and Two Flower, and obviously they sort of part ways at the end, and I don't know what to expect from the rest of these books as far as like when we see Rincewind again, when we follow Two Flower again. I have no idea what to expect for the future of these books, but I'm just really curious and excited to get to more Discworld because it's something entirely unique and different to what I'm reading. Every other fantasy book that I read, there's a lot of very same feelings to them, and Discworld is just something really just its own thing, and I love and appreciate that. And rest in peace, Terry Pratchett. I wish we had gotten 100 of these books, but we have dozens and dozens to read through, and that's just great. Next up, we have another entirely unique and albeit sort of crazy mind. I don't know how this man works or puts these ideas to a page. That would be The Wastelands, Dark Tower number 3 by Stephen King. Now, this did continue my awesome experience of reading Stephen King's books. I have yet to dislike a single one, and although parts of this book I didn't actually like as much as Drawing of the Three, it is an excellent book, and The Dark Tower is something that I don't even know how I would explain it to somebody. It's completely out there and wild. And even King, I want to say there's like an author's note at the end of this book where he's saying, like, to the readers, there will be more Dark Tower, and when he's able to sit down and think about it, because he loves thinking through this world and putting it to the page. It's almost as if he has to get in a certain mindset of abnormal thought and creativity to be able to even construct a narrative around this world, because there's so many things in it that are just entirely original and out there and so creative to the point that it's damn impressive that it even exists. I'll leave it at that. Dark Tower is fantastic. I love how the characters are growing throughout this series. I still have zero idea where it's going to go. Next month, I'm going to read Wizard and Glass, and Jesus, it's even thicker of a book than Wastelands. And Wastelands was big. I'd say the one main negative for me for the Wastelands, which is why I set it just below Drama of the Three, is I felt like part of it was a little bit too long or disjointed, maybe a little bit of both, because it does kind of feel like two separate books in a way. It's not a completely streamlined narrative all the way through, and I felt it meandered a little bit through the end of like the beginning to the middle of the book. Other than that, though, it's great. The ending is fantastic, and damn, what a way to end a book. If I was reading these as they came out, I would have been super salty at the way that this ended. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to continuing. Again, my lofty goal of reading whatever 17, 18 books in a Dark Tower reading order, including The Stand, including It, and all these other books. I don't think I'm going to do that once again, but I will get to those books eventually, because I do still want to read them. But I'm having so much fun with The Dark Tower that I think I'm going to just continue on straight through. And if I feel like there's a good stopping point, or I feel like I just want to put it down for a minute and read another King book that kind of ties into it, I will. But for now, my plan is going to be to just continue all the way through to The Dark Tower and then wrap up with the revised edition of The Gunslinger, because I started with the original edition, which again, I love that book a lot. So I'm curious to see what changes in the revised edition and if things sort of like stick out or make sense that I didn't initially understand. So yeah, loving the Dark Tower journey, loving Stephen King. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. And finally, I'm not actually done with this yet. I'm about, like I said, 65-ish% of the way through Red Seas Under Red Skies, book 2 of the Gentleman Bastards series. So again, if you are not familiar with Scott Lynch, these books have basically been on hold for, like a decade almost now. Maybe I'm giving that a couple extra years. I'm not really sure, but between him and George R.R. Martin, I have some fantasy series that I'm itching to finish that who knows if they will be. But book 2. So far, I think Liza Locke-Lamora was such a high bar and so fantastic, and I loved damn near every single second of it. This is not quite hitting the same notes that it does. Right now, if I was going to give it probably like a 4 out of 5 stars or whatever, I don't rate books like that, but on Goodreads, that's probably what you'll see it as, is a 4 out of 5, unless the last like 30% changes my mind. There's something just so perfect about the Liza Locke-Lamora, just the way that it captivated me and introduced me to the characters and their adventures that they went on, and the dialogue, and there's just something, I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker for book 1s of series, but it captured me in a way that this isn't, and that's probably partially because this is following more one story, whereas Liza Locke-Lamora, they were doing so many different things, and there were a ton of different situations that they got into that I just found more interesting. And I don't love pirates. I don't love boats. Oh, in real life, I hate being on boats. I get sick. But that sort of setting is not my favorite, so that's probably partially why I'm not enjoying it quite as much. It's the same reason that, like, I'm a big, RPG dork, and Pillars of Eternity was one of my favorite. Like, I love the traditional sort of RPG style, really pulling from, like, this basic fantasy stuff. And then Deadfire, its sequel, was all about pirates and being on boats, and there's something about that setting that just doesn't vibe with me. So that's probably where most of my negativity comes from for this book. But overall, it's still fantastic. Like, it's not that it's a bad book by any means. I just personally don't get along great with some of where the book is taking place or focusing on. But Scott Lynch is an incredible author and writes fantastic dialogue. Locke and John are still incredibly interesting and funny and hilarious characters to follow. And just when they do get into a lot of shit, which they frequently do, the way that they try to talk themselves out of it is absolutely hilarious. And once again, like, I don't usually laugh at books. These books make me laugh, and that's great because they're not necessarily happy books, but the dialogue is written in a way and the characters act in such a way that they ease a lot of tension in otherwise very tense situations. And much like a Marvel movie would, where they kind of break all the tension with some quippy dialogue, you get a lot of that in these books, and I'm here for it. I totally love that. It's really just the pirate stuff that I'm just kind of like, that's fine, but I'd rather see them doing something else. But overall, still very good. So that ended up being the 4 books that I read in the month of June. Again, not quite done with that. I'll be done in the next day or 2 with that, so it'll roll into a little bit of July. Foundation is the other one that I didn't actually get to. I started it. I think I read 10 or 15 pages, and then for whatever reason, I ended up reading this instead. I got into a point where I wasn't able to read as much, and I was doing a lot of audiobook, and that's kind of where a good chunk of this reading came from, so I just kept going with that. Foundation, I'm just going to roll into July, so we'll talk about that. But that's my June, so I'm interested in hearing what you all read, what some of your favorites are, what's something that you maybe thought that you were going to get to that you weren't able to. When are you going to read it? Let me know in the comments down below, and until next time.